Hi everyone, Charles from the Food People here. Hope you're all keeping safe and well. It's my great pleasure to welcome Jo Elsdon, co-founder of Flourish in Food. And today we're going to be talking all about mentoring, what it is, why it's important, who's involved, how you can get involved, and the super exciting Flourish in Food program. Welcome, Jo. It's brilliant to have you as part of the Food People in conversation with.
Thanks, Charles. Super happy to be here. Excited to go through the chat.
Good stuff. Um, at the Food People, we're very clear about why we do what we do. We're champions of change driven every day by our intent to shift the future of food and drink by harnessing the power of trend. And this, in conversation with series, which is now in series 3, is all about talking to people, brands, businesses, entrepreneurs across the spectrum of food and drink to find out more about why they do what they do and how, in their way, they're championing change and shifting the future of food and drink. I think with that intro, Jo, it's super pertinent to be talking about mentoring. So let's jump in and get started. I think obviously we want to talk a lot about flourishing food, but can we begin perhaps just with a few moments on you and how you got to where you're at in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in the industry for about 25 years now, and started way back studying food at A level and university,
Huh?
not really knowing where I wanted to go. And I've kind of like fallen through many roles and decisions that I've made in my career, but 25 years predominantly spent within product development.
Uh-huh.
Half of that pretty much been in retail businesses,
Mhm.
and half of it in manufacturing. So a really sort of good understanding of both sides of the spectrum. Gradually sort of, grown in areas of responsibility. And now current role, I joined Greggs, a really exciting business. So joined Greggs 9 months ago as their head of food and drink development. So yeah, really excited to be part of that business.
Yeah, definitely. A super exciting business and a great time to join that business as well. Brilliant.
Absolutely.
But let's talk a little bit about, or begin to talk about flourishing food. Could we just start with assume that we've got no knowledge? What even is flourishing food?
So, Flourish in Food is a mentoring service for the food industry run by a team of volunteers to help people navigate their way through the food industry, whether at their start of the career or whether or not they've got 20, 30 years experience. So, we're effectively a speed dating site for the industry.
Excellent stuff. Fantastic. Uh, let's go a little bit back to basics and just in in your view, and I guess other people might have different interpretations, but what for you is mentoring and why is it important?
So yeah, I mean, you can Google mentoring, and a lot of the time, if you type in what is mentoring, the next sentence that will come up will be what is mentoring, what is coaching.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
quite strong views around whether they're the same, they're
Yeah.
different, they're black and white, and there's grey space in between. But ultimately, mentoring is a relationship between two people which offers guidance and support.
Mhm.
So it's the sharing of experiences ultimately to benefit the mentee,
Mhm.
to help them develop. And that might be around knowledge, it might be behaviors, it might be
Mhm.
skills. Um, but I think it's also really to put out, it's not just about the mentee, the mentor, and we'll probably come on to talk about this a bit more, but the
Yeah.
mentor gains a lot of
Yeah.
benefits from it as well. So you tend to go into a relationship thinking it's all about the mentee and their learning, but naturally every mentor will grow and learn as part of that as well. And I guess one of the key differences to coaching tends to be a little bit more specific.
Mhm.
And a coach doesn't necessarily need to have specific experience
Okay.
in the industry even.
Yeah.
So they will have trained, they will have learned tools and techniques, questioning to really sort of help you as an individual come to the resolution yourself.
Yeah.
Often lots of
Yeah.
reflection, self-reflection. Mentoring is more open, I would say. There's a lot more kind of discussion, sharing, listening to help you know what you need to and get out of that.
Brilliant. That's super. That I hadn't actually considered that that comparison with coaching. So it's brilliant to sort of unpack that from your perspective. The second part of my question was, why is it important? It's kind of obvious, but it'd be good just to get your view on that as well.
Yeah, so no matter what stage you are on your journey, you might be at university deciding how you're going to enter the industry, or a industry, can be relevant for any industry at all. It's useful to have someone to bounce your thoughts off. It's useful to have a trusted space. And, traditionally, I think people would have a line manager, they might have some peers they can speak to, but actually what mentoring relationships allow is a trusted space to maybe test some of your theories, be really open and honest, and learn and listen from others that you can then take back into what you do at work. And you utilize that. So it can really help sort of build confidence and build skills and behaviors that maybe you just need that bit of extra support on, that you don't want to ask for at work, or you may be not getting from the people around you.
No, that's really, it's super important when you bring it to life in that way. And I really want to talk about some of the success stories, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on, if that's all right. As we were talking about and preparing for this discussion, I kind of thought this notion of mentoring, it's clearly not new, but you and your other co-founders must have felt that there was some kind of unmet mentoring need to even start Flourish in Food in the first place. I'm really keen to understand what that you felt that unmet need is or was, and how do you kind of fill that with Flourish in Food?
Yeah, so if I just explain a little bit about how it was set up in the first place, that'll help to take us to answer that. So Flourish in Food was set up originally by Cameron, one of our founders, Cameron Rigg. And it was in lockdown. So we all went into lockdown in March 2020. And Cameron noticed he's still very involved with Sheffield Hallam University as alumni. Was seeing lots of students having placement cancelled and first jobs cancelled, and felt like he wanted to help. So one day, literally just put a post on LinkedIn, anybody fancy kind of like helping others? I think we were all in that point of time where we needed that from each other. So I, along with about 50 other people, signed up to be mentors. And from that, Cameron just basically got some students together, got some people in the industry together, and sent them off on their way. Which was amazing to be able to give that support. So it was only ever intended as a one-off at that point in time. And then I think absolutely. And then myself and Catherine, one of the other co-founders, both separately reached out to Cam probably about 6 months in. We both had really positive experiences and said, look, we think there's something in this. Like, if you want to keep it going, we'd be really happy to support. So sort of roll 12 months on, and Flourish in Food was born. We had a name, we had some processes in place, and off we went again as a team, really. So I think the reason that it was set up and the reason that we're so passionate about is I still feel like it's quite an unknown area. So even if you've chosen to go into the food industry and study it at university, there's still a lot of unknowns about what roles look like, what does it be, and even going back into schools, people don't even know about careers. And I'm sure when you tell people, Charles, what you do for a job and what I tell them, people are still amazed and go, wow, that's amazing. And I get exactly the same response now as I did 20 years ago. So not much has changed, really. So there's no clear mapped out careers for people. So by having this service, initially it was very much about pairing people up at university or the early part of their careers with people who understand it, just to help people navigate the industry, maybe understand what jobs might be available, what's the difference between a development technologist a product developer, a food scientist, there might not even be a difference. It might just be that that's the way that company calls those roles. And how are you expected to know that when you graduate? So that was sort of the original service. And then we ran like that for 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah.
And we started to think about, actually, do you know what? We would benefit from mentors. And it doesn't really matter how much experience you've got, that having somebody outside of the business you work in to really sort of develop yourself is a benefit to everybody. And at the same time, Claire Martino, who's now part of the team, reached out to us as well, and that was an area she was really passionate about. So we were like, okay, come on board. So Claire joined the team, and we're now open to anybody. So like I say, it doesn't matter, as long as you're 18, you're at uni studying, or you're entering a career, or you've got 20-30 years experience, we can still help. We will try and help and find you somebody to be a mentor. So it's just been a really, really great journey to kind of see some of those relationships flourish. And especially with those sort of from an early careers perspective, seeing them, a lot of us have seen our mentees come out of university, get jobs, now be going maybe for second jobs, and the satisfaction that you get from having helped somebody on that journey is incredible.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I have to say, very proud to be involved in Flourish in Food as a mentor. And the two mentees that I have at the moment are exactly at the ends of the spectrum that you illustrated. One is in the early part of their career, first 1 or 2 jobs. The other has been in the industry for many, many years. And yeah, it works at all levels, exactly as you described. I have to say,
as well, sorry, I was just going to say, Charles, I think as well, it's probably the other thing we're trying to offer is it's a really hard industry. It's very fast paced, it's very high pressure. So, there's a few things I think since lockdown that have happened that offer support to people now in this industry. But I think, for people looking for support and a safe space, networking's not for everybody. Like networking events, those kind of events where you turn up, isn't for everybody. Nobody embraces them. Some people kind of go to them because they feel it's the right thing. This is a different form of networking on a much more personal level.
Different, yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I think in the first line of your introduction, when I said, what is Flourish in Food, you mentioned the word volunteer. And so everybody that's involved gives their time to be part of Flourish in Food. And that's, when I was thinking about it, I wanted to consider why they do that. And what do you think is kind of the deeper purpose that unites all of those people that are involved? Why do you do it? There's probably something other, there could be other things that you could do. You might even get paid for it. So why get involved and do it?
I think, and I guess now we are a team of 6, and we have those of us who've been around a bit longer than others. But ultimately, we are all passionate about the industry, I would say. So we're all passionate no matter what stage of our journeys we are. And I think we are all people. So we all care about others. We're all very sort of empathetic, and we just want to help. And I think that, I guess COVID made us all reflect about, life is more important than just going to work. So to be able to give something back to the industry that we've worked in and we love and we've enjoyed is just a great thing to be able to do. And, like I mentioned earlier, seeing those success stories at the end, there's nothing better than that, So I think it's just that passion for the industry and passion for people ultimately.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can relate to some of that, and it doesn't in any way compare to what you're doing, but I had that similar sort of epiphany moment in COVID, and it was that connection with other people around food and drink that I really missed. And as you know, set up what I call simul percebum, which is together through food, which is an industry dining club. And you're absolutely right. It's all about the group. It's all about the people. And when I get those emails that say, "What a fantastic evening! So good to share stories, share knowledge with other people who are equally as obsessive about food and drink around the table." We make some charitable donations off the back of that, but the feeling that you get from that is second to none. To brought those people together and have those great conversations, and it's different but similar, I guess.
It's something, and it's something to be proud of when when you are involved with something and you've kind of, you've helped to create something. Like, we also shouldn't shy away from the fact that actually we're quite proud of it as well, and so from I suppose from a self-actualization perspective, you get that benefit as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Can we talk a little bit about who's involved, and that by that I mean the mentee and the mentor. Just to sort of unpack that a little bit, who is the mentee? What's their role in the relationship? What can they expect to get out of it? And then we'll talk a little bit about the mentor as well. But if we can start perhaps with the mentee, that would be great.
Yeah, so the mentee is generally the person that's looking for help in the simplest terms, and that help might be development in behavioural skills, leadership behaviours, or values of the business that you're working within, personal values. It could be wanting support with how to do certain tasks in the industry, which might be specific to a role. So you might have a development technologist or and somebody entering the technical spec field who is just a bit overwhelmed and wants some help there. So that's where it starts. So actually somebody needs some help and wants some support, and they want to develop themselves. And really what the best mentees are those that can allocate the time to really thinking that through.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that they're actually looking for help for? Spending that time up front to really think about that is key, to make sure, one, you get paired with the right person, because the more we know about you, the easier it is to match you with somebody that suits. But also it's that helping your mentor to then understand how they can help you. So we really encourage our mentees, and we've got sort of a mentoring guide that we provide to think about different tools that you can use, like Grow and Soar, to really think about, okay, this is where I'm looking for support. This is how I think you can help me. And then actually you can sort of map out a little bit of a relationship there. I think without that focus, and we've seen this sometimes where relationships don't work, is mentee and mentor will get on their first meeting, they'll talk about, tell me about you, share, but the relationship just kind of bobs around. It doesn't necessarily go anywhere, and generally that's because that time hasn't been put in up front. And we always say it's the mentee that needs to drive the relationship. It's not the mentor to have to tease out of the mentee. It really needs to be driven by the mentee.
And I can see that I can see from a mentor's perspective that you communicate that to the mentees as well, as part of the process, because the two that I'm mentoring at the moment, they've been very proactive, and that works really well in saying, actually, this is what I want to get out of it, and we've got kind of guardrails around, before the session, at least a week before or whatever, then those, that's coming through. And that from a mentor's perspective, that's super useful, because and you're very clear about how you're adding value and what the expectations are and all that kind of thing. So and
that's super important, like you say, because actually it means you can prep for the session. Having those guardrails in advance is brilliant. That's a real good example of best practice. Because actually that enables then you to think about how you are going to structure the session, how you might go into that. And I think also the other thing I think that can really help the mentee to prep for it is thinking about, well, what does success look like? So what did they want to, if this is going to be maybe the 6-month relationship, at the end of 6 months, what do you want to have gained from it? How do you want to feel? What skills do you want to have gained? Because even if you don't know how to get there, you can use your mentor to help that. But sharing, I'm here at the moment and this is where I want to get to, is brilliant.
And you've mentioned it there actually, and I've read in reading and researching around flourishing food, a number of times I've read 6 months. Is that because that, in your experience, that's an optimal time for this kind of relationship? Do you have ones that can, you can, as a mentor, you can continue to add value beyond that time frame? Just a little bit on that would be useful.
Absolutely. I think we see that many mentoring relationships, generally 6 months is about right. So what we ask people to commit to is an hour a month for 6 months. We feel that kind of gives enough time to build a relationship, to work on some real opportunities, and see some success. If it's something small, actually, you might be able to do it in a shorter period, but optimum, we would generally say 6 months. What we tend to find is where there's chemistry in the relationship and there's time to be able to continue to commit, it generally carries on. But that relationship might change slightly. So it might become slightly less formal as you get into a year. You start to become friends, and, it's interesting. I never had an official mentor in my career. As I look back and reflect now, understanding what mentoring is, I've definitely had those people. I've just not what I called them. And they are, they're friends or they're previous peers or previous managers are my go-tos when I've got a challenge. But the first pairing that I had back in March 2020 was somebody who was at university. They were in their placement year. They were concerned about going back into uni, suddenly starting to have a think about doing dissertations, applying for jobs, no real idea about where to go. And we're nearly 4 years on and we still meet for a coffee at Starbucks up the road. I was really lucky that I got paired with somebody locally to me as well. So, and actually to see her have grown over that time, graduated, get the first job, which was a temporary position, now in a permanent job, looking at potentially career moves is so rewarding, and she's a reverse mentor for me as well. So actually, I sometimes bounce things off her as well, going like, what do you think of this? This has happened in my team. What's your interpretation of that? So she challenges me too.
That's good. You've answered the guy I was about to ask you, explain what reverse mentorship is, and you've just done that. So that's brilliant. So what about the mentor then? So what's that relationship? Who is that, and what can they expect to get out of the relationship?
So the mentor's there to help and support, and most importantly, to listen and share experiences. So this is where the different relationship from a coach is. It's not about just teasing it all out. Actually, you can share what your experiences and your thoughts are. So really, listening skills is key to the mentor. You need to be able to really listen, hear what they're saying, and think about what experiences that you've had that will help that person to develop. And that might be personal experiences you've had. It might be that you've had other people in your team, whether it be a skill, whether it be knowledge, whether it be behavioural. And I think the other thing often is kind of sharing tools as well, which I've found is really helpful. That, I guess since the industry, when I started in the industry, I think we had like, one computer in an office. People didn't really use email externally. We had pages. It's insane. So it's much easier now to help people. There's so much more available. So helping tools for self-development and different approaches and techniques, seeing what works for people, often a mentor has had quite a lot of exposure to some of those areas, so that can be a really good opportunity as well.
Yeah.
Just being able to listen and adapt, I think, are the key things.
Yeah. And I have to say, when you were talking about what you referenced earlier in the conversation about what the mentor, how there's a real feel good from a mentor's perspective to be able to share that knowledge and expertise. And in fact, when you said that further in the earlier in the conversation, the hairs stood up on the back of my neck just because of it feels great, and to be able to pass that knowledge on and have a kind of forum for that. So I think there's a lot in it for the mentor as well. You suddenly realize when you're talking about some of the, having these discussions, you don't necessarily value what you know, and what you picked up in 25, 30 years worth of experience in the industry. And of course, you apply that in your day job, of course, but having another channel to directly be able to support somebody else who's got questions or challenges or wants advice, that's just it's a wonderful feeling, actually.
I think being a mentor can kind of give you confidence, exactly to that point that you just said. So actually, no matter what stage of your career you're in, actually you might be in the earlier stages thinking about, do I want to go into management and leadership? It's a really nice way to test the water on building how you might build relationships with people. But also, lots of us have moments of imposter syndrome in the industry, and you question yourself and you say, I've got 25 years experience, or how am I in this role, and like, how have I got here? And ultimately it is that experience that gets you there. It's just that you've spent the time, you've got the scars, you've lived and breathed it. So I think being in a mentoring relationship and sometimes hearing yourself share some of that experience helps you realize, actually, I have done all this great stuff in my past. And again, like, we shouldn't shy away from feeling good about that.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So how does it work then? So what's the process? When does it happen? How do you match mentees and mentors?
Okay, so we have what we call 2 cohorts a year. Okay. So in March and in October, we open for applications.
Okay.
So our next application window opens on the 1st of March, and we'll run for the full month. Okay. So at that point in time, we have a button that suddenly appears by magic on our website. Okay. And you can click a button that says apply to be a mentee. So we have a really simple form that we ask people to fill in. And again, spending the time to fill that form in, we ask people, what you're doing now? Are you at uni? Are you in your career? How much experience have you got? What are you looking for from this relationship? What are you hoping to achieve from it? Some fairly simple questions, but the more you can put into that, the more likely, your application is going to be successful, because not every application is successful. And we do have to sometimes, sort of go through applications, and sometimes people aren't successful because actually they've just not given us enough information to be able to pair you with somebody, and we value everyone's time so much. Same post for the mentor. So same application window, the button opens, apply to be a mentor. And again, a similar form to fill in. So actually, what's your level of experience? What are you looking to achieve from it? But also, what skills have you got to offer? So it might be around, I want to help people coming into the industry who are new to it. It might be, I've got leadership skills to offer. It might be experience in a certain area of the industry. And we also ask you, what area of the industry do you work in? So if we know that from both parties, we might match someone from commercial with someone on commercial, procurement, MPD. But actually, if it's about leadership behaviours, that doesn't matter. So again, useful information. So you have a month to apply. That then comes into a database for us. And then between the team of 5 of us that do the pairing, we split them up by function and we pair up. So it takes us about a month to get through it. To be fair, it's a personal process. So we go through every single application and look at, okay, this is the mentee A, this is what they're looking for, this is what they're trying to achieve from it. And then we look through the mentor database that we've got to say, right, what feels like the right pair. So if it's someone from product development looking for product development, we'll filter it, find all our product development mentors, have a look at the levels of experience, what feels like the right match. The more information that we get, like the really good applications that we get, you can hear the passion in people's little text boxes. So sometimes even just on that paper match, we can get really excited and be like, this feels really, really good. If less information, it's harder. And what we can never 100% guarantee is chemistry. So sometimes we might pair people up that we think are going to be an amazing match, and those 2 people can get together and actually there's just not that click. And I'll come to what happens in that instance. So once we've done those pairings, like a dating service, we send out an email, we introduce you to each other. So it's an email from us that introduces the 2 of you, and we send you on your way. And basically that's it. We don't get involved any further unless there's a problem. So we do sometimes find that either there's a mismatch in chemistry. We do sometimes have people, unfortunately, that sign up and maybe they've done it a little bit on a whim, or, you know, they thought it was a great thing, but then when it comes to getting their pairing email, they've maybe decided it's not the right time for them. So sometimes a mentor or mentee might not hear anything. And all we say is, look, give it a few emails, and if you're still struggling, come back to us and then we'll try and repair you. So wherever we can, whether it is you don't hear anything, or if there's ever a mismatch, we will do what we can to try and rematch you or start again. If we can, we do it at that point in time. Sometimes we have to wait until the next cohort.
It's like,
we used to have applications open much more like around the year, but it's gained momentum, let's just say that. And obviously we are all volunteers, and the pairing service takes quite a long time, so it allows us to really sort of plan and focus our year by doing it that way.
Definitely. So and is the mentor and mentee kind of cohort window the same? So or do you look for mentors throughout the year, or is it, or do you stick to those two?
So this has been the first year that we've limited the mentor application windows. What we found is we did used to allow mentors to apply all year round, because we don't have a service if we don't have enough mentors. So we needed to build that bank of mentors up. What we have found subsequently, however, though, is sometimes a mentor might have signed up, say in December. If they then don't hear anything until April, their circumstances have changed, or they'd forgotten they'd applied, or so actually we feel like it's this last cohort we did just in the month of October, and it worked much better. So it just helps us to manage it a little bit more, and I think we'll see our success improve that way as well.
Definitely. So to be super clear, next cohort begins on the 1st of March 2024. Go on to the Flourish and Food website, which is
just put into Google Flourish and Food Mentoring, and it'll take you straight there. But we're also quite active on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. So if you follow us on both of those, Instagram is Flourishing Food. We naturally, our social content starts to build up as we get to February and March. So you'll start to see, and there'll be links all over. You won't be able to miss us if you follow us.
Excellent. That's super exciting. And I really just wanted to ask you, and we've kind of talked about this as we've gone through really, but just a couple of success stories. I mean, how many people have been successfully paired? Love to know a bit more about that.
So I had a quick look this morning before I came onto the call, and I think we're over 350 pairings now, which is incredible. It really is. And we've had some lovely success stories, you know, so there's a few testimonials on our website. And if anyone is listening that is part of the scheme already, we're always looking to hear your success stories. If you want to be featured or not, that's fine. But we love to hear the success stories. But, you know, I've talked specifically about my my mentee that we're still in touch with. You know, there's a number of lovely stories of, you know, particular people in their early stage careers where they've been able to really build in confidence that's then given them confidence to go for promotion at work, and they've been successful in that. And, you know, they'll come back to us and let us know that, you know, thank you for your service, because without my mentor I maybe couldn't have done that. And then actually we've got one lovely pairing who, I think the quote that we had was, whoever paired us together was genius. And which is just quite, you know, amazing. And on paper we don't know everybody. We, you know, sometimes we do know people that come through, but the majority we don't. So there is a little bit of luck in it. So when we get feedback like that, it's just incredible.
I'm imagining you talked about speed dating. It's a bit like married at first sight as well.
It is, absolutely.
And obviously, next cohort we've already mentioned, and I'm going to mention it again, 1st of March 2024. But what's next? What does a bit of the future horizon look like for Flourish in Food? Is the kind of thing that could grow arms and legs.
It could, and it's really exciting for us, but also we've kind of got to balance it because we've all got really busy big jobs as well. So some of your listeners might be aware we did our first in-person event in September. So Amy and Lucy from the O's of Food's Sake team reached out to us. They were doing their first in-person event, and they asked us to be a partner within that. So we had a fantastic session where we talked about networking, benefits of mentoring. Amy Burke, who I think you know as well from IGD, who's very, very passionate about mentoring. She was there, and we also were really privileged that one of our mentees and mentors joined us as part of that panel interview as well. So really could share those experiences. So I think we're probably keen to continue with a little bit of that and get out and about to really help people see and feel the passion. We've got a strategy day coming up in March, actually. It's in March. So we try and get together. We started to try and get together once a year because we're all based all over the country, where we sort of plan out what does the next year look like, what's our mission, what are our values. But ultimately it's really about continuing to provide a service, let as many people hear about it as possible, you know, get the best quality mentors that we can for our mentees, and also get people back in as well, because what people have to remember is if you do finish up with your relationship, like, you can have another one, you can have two at the same time. So we you know, we want to encourage people to come back. Focus right here right now is obviously on that March window, so it's all about sort of promotion. And we do quite a lot of close work with the universities as well. So we've got a few key universities that we partner with, where we do online sessions for their students at the point of where the application windows open. So this year we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to have we're going to set the time and the date and invite numerous universities and students all to join us. So that'll be something new and different for us. So exciting times, and let's see that number increase.
Well, we hope to be able to do our little bit to amplify the great work that Flourish in Food is doing, as well as part of that. And I feel like we could carry on talking for much longer, but that, I think, concludes this episode of the Food People in Conversation with Jo. On behalf of us all, the Food People, and the In Conversation with audience, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about the Flourish in Food story, your journey in food and drink. It's been a real eye-opener, and of course a pleasure to speak to you today.
Thanks, Charles. It's been an absolute pleasure.
So do join our TFP community for the details of our latest In Conversation with episodes, as well as our latest free to access food and drink trends foresight. Visit thefoodpeople.co.uk. and complete your details at the footer of the page to join our community. On behalf of Joe and myself, thanks so much for listening to the Food People in Conversation with. Join with us in the trends of today and the foresight of tomorrow to shift the future of food and drink. And as always, leave you with one question, and that is, how are you shifting the future of food and drink? Thanks for listening.